Welcome everybody to the Social Dig, the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I am your host, Mr. Rob G, and as always, we're going to be digging into the topics to keep you talking and the talk that keeps you thinking. So come on in, kick your feet up, get comfortable, and get ready to join the conversation. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about some things. We're going to talk about the moon landing. Did it happen or did it not happen? You know, a lot of people stand on either side of that issue. And I'm not going to really pick a side. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the reasons why people say it didn't happen. And then we're going to look at the opposing side and for the people to say, oh, we definitely landed on the moon. You know, it's one of the most fabled stories of all time. So either one, it was one of the greatest achievements by mankind, or two, it's one of the biggest cover-ups of mankind. I don't know which side you stand on. I don't know. We're going to look at it. Just glad to be back in the building. You know, we took a little time off, as you already know. New host over there at Spaced Out Radio. That's the new home, new family. And we over there putting it together. So make sure you guys come over there and check us out. And also check me out right here on the Social Dig. We will still be doing this thing at least once a week. So click your notification bell so you can make sure that you know when we go live. Let me go ahead and check the chat. Magneticus, yeah, there we go. Okay, he's in the building. I know Cashew stopped by earlier. And like I said before, the timing has been a little bit off, obviously, with the other obligations that I have. So the balance, it's about finding the balance, right? So you're going to see the evolution of not only the Social Dig, because we always commit to raising the bar right here, but also the work that we're putting in over there at Spaced Out Radio after hours. Shout out Dave Scott. Shout out the whole team over there. So like I said, definitely come over there, support your guy over there, and then support your guy back over here too. You know, it's all a family thing. They love us, we love them, we love each other, and that's the way we're going to do this thing. So I don't know how long I'm going to go today. I'm just going to fill it out. But we got some news to get into, a couple stories, and then we're going to go ahead and have the discussion about the moon landing. I'd love to hear what you think about it. You already know what time it is. Let me go ahead and bring up the graphic, because you know you can ask the chat, post a response or the question in the live chat, or call the message line 856-843-3444, or that's 856 The Dig. Haha, Spaced Out Radio, Dave Scott, thanks for coming through. Derek Galloway, thanks for coming through. And we're going to go ahead and jump into our disclosure news. Right, disclosure news. So we still have the moniker up. Is disclosure heating up? After I'd say one of these stories, you might agree that disclosure is actually heating up. I don't know where it was for the last couple of weeks, but there's been some motion going on in the field in ufology. So we're going to go ahead and take a look and see why disclosure might be heating up. So we're going to start off with the first story we have here, which is about a 4.5 billion year old rock coming to Earth. Now, that sounds crazy, right? Because I know when I first heard that, I was like, oh, okay, an asteroid? Or, what are the details on that? So, but there's a little more to that story. We'll go ahead and jump into it. So this asteroid right here, NASA went ahead and, if you recall, shot a a spacecraft or a collection device to this asteroid to go ahead and bring back rocks from the surface. And it has finally arrived. This story came out prior to the landing of the craft. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that and see what that details. And then plus, I talked to Jim Goodall the other day, and he really made a great point about the ramifications potentially of something like this. And it really was something that I didn't really think about or hadn't even considered. But if it is true, then it would be something definitely to think about. So let's see here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get into this story. Actually, let me go ahead and get us in here. Okay, so this story comes from the dailymail.co.uk, and how NASA's asteroid sample will be brought back to Earth. Capsule carrying dust from a 4.5 billion year old space rock is hurtling towards Utah desert ahead of Sunday's historic landing. So that's why there's so much excitement about the return. Its cargo is so precious it could help answer some of humanity's biggest existential questions. That's why there is so much excitement about the return of the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft, which will drop a capsule full of 4.5 billion year old space dust back to Earth on Sunday. The 8.8 ounce sample, audaciously grabbed from the mountain-sized asteroid Bennu in October 2020, could shed light on how life emerged on Earth and whether we are alone in the universe. OSIRIS-REx began its 2-year, 4-month journey home in May 2021, having been powered down to conserve energy during the trip. In the early hours of Sunday, however, the probe will be woken from this low power mode ahead of its important delivery. And I'm going to go ahead and stop right there for a moment so I can bring up the image of how this process is supposed to take place. So I'll leave this up while I go ahead and finish reading this here. And NASA's engineers will want to make sure that OSIRIS-REx's trajectory and orientation are spot on, because even the slightest misalignment could spell disaster for the mission. That could mean the capsule either burns up in the Earth's atmosphere or misses the planet entirely and shoots off into space. Once they are happy with their calculations, the spacecraft will then jettison its payload at 6:42 Eastern Time, around 63,000 miles above the Earth. OSIRIS-REx will then embark on its next mission by setting off at the asteroid Apophis, which is due to reach in 2029 before carrying out 18 months of surveillance. The capsule, meanwhile, will begin hurtling into the Earth's upper atmosphere at 27,000 miles per hour, more than 15 times the speed of a rifle bullet, around 4 hours after separation. This will produce a fireball in the sky, but a heat shield will protect the priceless asteroid material that sits inside the capsule, experiences forces up to 32 times the Earth's gravity. The drogue parachute will then be deployed at about 10:42 Eastern Time to slow the capsule slightly down from hypersonic to subsonic speeds. Shortly afterwards, engineers should see it enter the airspace above the Department of Defense's Utah Test and Training Range in Utah's West Desert at approximately 10:46 Eastern Time. Once the capsule reaches an altitude of 1 mile, its main parachute will deploy around 8 minutes after the drogue. This will slow down the package to speeds of 11 miles per hour before it makes what hopefully be a soft landing on the desert floor at about 10:55 Eastern Time. At this point, the capsule will be checked for structural integrity before ground samples are taken and tested to rule out the possibility of the Bennu material being contaminated by its impact with the Earth's surface. The sample will then be taken to a nearby mobile clean room for safekeeping until it can be transported to a new lab at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, which is home to hundreds of pounds of lunar material collected by the 12 Apollo moonwalkers. An acronym for origin, spectral interpretation, resource identification, Security Regolith Explorer, OSIRIS-REx became the first U.S. mission to collect a sample from an asteroid when it briefly touched down on Bennu in 2020 and scooped up the material with its robotic arm. The space rock is about the size of the Empire State Building and around 200 million miles away from us. It is of great interest to scientists because it's believed to contain microscopic mineral grains that predate the solar system. This carbon-rich material is also thought to hold the preserved building blocks of life and can help experts better understand how the planets were formed and how life originated on Earth. The sample that OSIRIS-REx recovered is the largest by a NASA mission since the Apollo astronauts returned with moon rocks in the 1960s and the 1970s. It has been billed as NASA's Asteroid Autumn and involves a trio of exciting missions that can answer some truly mind-boggling questions, from offering clues to how life on Earth began to unlocking the secrets of the solar system. Key milestones for each voyage are due to play out over the next 6 weeks. They include one rocket launch, a distant flyby between Jupiter and Mars, and the recovery of ancient space rocks in the Utah desert that could contain ingredients for life. One of the three, the liftoff of NASA's Psyche aircraft, probably sounds the most mundane, but not so fast. That is also a fascinating mission because it is setting off on a 2.5 billion mile journey to find out once and for all if a metal-rich asteroid really could bring down the world's economy. So, with that being said, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, right? So, NASA is a science-based institution, and this is going to be good for science. They'll be able to take a look at this and figure out some things. Now, one of the things I would say, and what Jim Goodall actually brought up, which is a super great point, was that this thing could have actually picked up some sort of pathogen from the asteroid, and here it is just crashing to Earth. You know, hopefully it stays protected. If there is any sort of pathogen from space that could have been picked up from this asteroid, that it doesn't get free here on Earth. Because if something like that were to happen, obviously, if you remember the plague situation that we went through recently, then this something like that could be detrimental to our existence if the craft were to be breached upon impact. However, NASA, and this point was made as well, that it would be a oopsie moment, and what could you really do, right? When you don't have any control over the choices that NASA makes. Let me go ahead and look out to the audience real quick. I do have Maggie M10 here. Hey, thanks for coming through. Appreciate you. Let me give you a little horn here. Thanks for coming through. And okay, we got some conversation going. That's great. Okay, so yeah, I mean, come on, man, it's NASA, right? So what do you think? I mean, NASA's all in the news, and we're going to be talking about NASA, right? Because NASA may have went to the moon, or maybe they didn't. So it's going to be a NASA themed show. But let me go ahead and get into the next story here. We do have the second story, which is 30 more whistleblowers. So apparently dozens of government UFO whistleblowers have given testimony to Congress, Pentagon, and Inspector General, say sources. I'm going to go ahead and get into this story and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Let's go ahead and jump into this one here. All right. So in August, shortly after the U.S. government UFO whistleblower David Grush gave testimony to Congress about crashed spacecraft and alien, quote, biologics, many observers wondered how much credence to put in his testimony. After all, Grush is just a single individual. The other two individuals who testified before Congress were former Navy pilots who said they had no evidence of a government program to retrieve and reverse engineer spacecraft of exotic and apparently non-human origin. But at least 30 other whistleblowers working for the federal government or government contractors have given testimony or a protected disclosure to the Office of the Intelligence Community Inspector General, or ICIG, the Defense Department Inspector General, DODIG, or the Congress over the last several months, according to multiple sources interviewed by Public. When told that whistleblowers had come forward to share information similar to that shared by Grush with Congress, Mick West, a prominent skeptic of UFOs, said, quote, "It'd be very interesting. More people saying the same thing independently makes it more likely to be true." Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Pause before I finish reading this. Okay, Mick West. Let me read what he said again. Mick West. We all are Mick West, right? Skeptic extraordinaire, Mick West, said, "It'd be very interesting. More people saying the same thing independently makes it more likely to be true." Let me pinch myself. Let me pinch myself. Because Mick West seems like the old guy's coming around, huh? We looked at last time we checked, and obviously this may have changed, probably only for the better, I would think. But the percentage of Americans polled was at 63% who believe the government are hiding extraterrestrial evidence in bodies. 20% remained to say, no, this isn't true, which would be the skeptics, only 20%, the minority. And it is just strange and weird to see Mick West actually make a statement like that. So I just had to pause for that. I'm going to jump right back into the story. But I think that's a big moment. That's probably a big win for the whole movement in ufology, because truthfully, Mick West is the go-to skeptic for the media. So if Mick West is making statements like this, I feel a more middle of the road Mick West right here. This might be the new Mick West. So let's go ahead and jump back into the story. All right, so yet the Inspector General of Intelligence Community, Thomas A. Mannheim, on September 15th appeared to deny in a letter to Congress that his office was investigating these claims. Mannheim said that his office has not conducted any audit, inspection, evaluation, or review of alleged UAP programs within responsibility authority of the DNI that would enable a fulsome response. By the way Mannheim worded his response suggests he gave himself some wiggle room. Matthew Pines, a civilian intelligence analyst, noted last week that the official taxonomy for the ICIG activities includes audits, investigations, inspections, and reviews. Is it curious that an investigation is not denied? The investigations division is structurally separate from the audit and the inspections and evaluations division. The fact that dozens of whistleblowers have come forward is not evidence of extraterrestrial life, nor of a government conspiracy to cover up a retrieval or reverse engineering program. And not all of the whistleblowers may be reporting evidence of UAP. Some may simply be reporting illegal or unethical behavior related to UAP programs. But the sources who asked to remain anonymous are all in a position to know, told Public, that in addition to the whistleblowers reporting wrongdoing, between 30 to 50 government employees or contractors have gone to the DOD's All Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, to offer testimony about UAPs. Some whistleblowers are coming forward directly to AARO, some to the DODIG, some to the ICIG, and some to Congress, said Nick Pope, a UAP expert who worked on the issue for the UK's Ministry of Defense. Many have speculated as to whether Grush and other whistleblowers or witnesses might be part of a U.S. government disinformation campaign. A former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer working at Kirtland Air Force Base in the 1980s through to the first decade of this century admitted to British journalist Mark Pilkington and others that he spread disinformation about UFOs with the aim of misleading civilian UFO investigators in order to cover up both U.S. military as well as non human technology programs. Wow. Wow. Okay. But experts interviewed by Public say it is unlikely that people waging a disinformation campaign would do it through the Office of the Inspector General, since doing so puts individuals at risk. Quote, considering the broader context to include Grush's allegations, previous reporting by Public, and the extraordinary legislation working its way through Congress, said Merrick von Rennenkamp, a former Pentagon appointee under the Obama administration, I find it hard to believe that so many individuals would open themselves up to significant legal jeopardy by willfully lying to inspectors general. Knowingly giving false testimony to the ICIG is punishable by fines up to $10,000 imprisonment for up to 5 years or both. If found guilty of lying to Congress, Grush would face up to 5 years in prison. At the same time, the history of past government disinformation campaigns in general, and as they specifically relate to UAPs, involves the mixing of accurate information and inaccurate information, making it difficult or impossible to feel confident in understanding the meaning of fundamental elements of the phenomena. That reality and the need to prevent government officials from deliberately misleading journalists, policymakers, and the public make greater transparency and disclosure essential. Both UFO skeptics and believers agree. It's either that dozens of highly cleared officials are in the grip of an enduring bizarre delusion, are witting participants to a broad scale and long-running psychological deception, said Pines, or they are relaying factual information on extraordinary covert programs. Said West, I can understand why people would think ufology is frivolous and a waste of government money, and we shouldn't be looking into it. But they don't think we shouldn't release the secret information about crashed alien craft. You know, something everybody wants to see. Testimony has included both first-hand and second-hand reports of crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs by U.S., Russian, and Chinese governments. The testing of materials obtained from retrieved craft, active and ongoing government disinformation operations, kinetic military action with UAPs, contact and collaboration with non-human intelligence or NHIs, and the successful reverse engineering of a triangle-shaped craft with unconventional propulsion. Wow. Okay, so did I just read what I just read? I almost don't believe what I just read. So, yeah, this sounds big, right? So when I asked earlier, is disclosure heating up? This is on fire. If this what we just heard right here, it's on fire right now. It's crazy. Triangle-shaped craft, right? What was the other line here? The other line was a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer working at Kirtland Air Force Base in the 1980s through to the first decade of the century admitted to British journalist Mark Pilkington and others that he spread disinformation about UFOs with the aim of misleading civilian UFO investigators in order to cover up both U.S. military as well as non-human technology programs. That's the smoking gun, dude. That's the smoking gun. If this person is credible, if this person can pass the smell test, all these things, this is one out of 30 to 50 that have come forward after Grush. We could be, and we have to obviously let this play out because we don't know all the information. We don't know Just like they said, some of these people who had come forward could have just come forward to report some unethical things that might have been going on and not necessarily any firsthand information. However, the one person right there, and then I'm just waiting to hear more about the others, but then they get to the point of talking about triangle shaped craft and the successful reverse engineering of a triangle shaped craft with unconventional propulsion. So, what could that mean? It obviously would mean that if it's reverse engineered, that it's a man made object. So, that would state that we probably have the ability to recreate these extraterrestrial craft. Now, the only problem I see with that is that now you're going to get the false flaggers up in arms, right? Now this is going to vouch for a lot of what they said. This is going to be like, see, the government has reverse engineered craft. Next thing they're going to do is they're going to uh, do the false flag invasion. However, what this definitely says is that if there's a reverse engineered craft, that they have ET craft. So, this could be good or bad, just depending on how you look at it. So I don't know, man. I mean, oh man, looking at this, more whistleblowers would be good, is what Maggie M10 says. Yeah, sounds like these are the guys right here. And I watched the Schellenberg interview, and he did say that the whistleblowers in this group are those ones that everybody wants, the ones that have firsthand knowledge, not talked to somebody or knew somebody who did something, that these people have firsthand knowledge, direct access to programs. Some of these guys are contractors. And what I love about this is, just like I was saying, you know, these people who are protected in these programs have the opportunity to step up and do something to benefit humanity. And they have the chance to do it, and they're doing it. They're doing it. And, we don't know when these whistleblower protections will be written out of law, right? We don't know how long this is going to stand. Maybe stands for another year for sure, with the new amendments being put in. But we know those things can be snatched away at any moment. So the beautiful thing is that 30 to 50 have stepped forward. That is a huge number. A huge number. These people are, deep in these projects to where they don't have to do this. They're protected under so many layers that they don't have to do this. So I think, it feels like there's a wave of compassion for humanity coming, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute of it, and I hope that continues. And I want to hear more about this. Schellenberg has been really close to this topic and on uncovering a lot of this information. So glad that that's the way that this is going. 2 weeks ago, asked the question, is disclosure heating up? And it was pretty silent. There wasn't, it was a lot of nothing going on. It felt like this may have been, the momentum may have been lost. But this picks everything right back up. And I'm just so glad that that's the case. I was calling for a leak or Corbell, come on, drop a video or something. And here we go. So we're off to the races. So let me see. Let's see here. Magneticus look at what is called unconventional. Okay. Magneticus anti-gravity has been known for about over 30 years, and I know of. Right. And we were just talking about that as well on After Hours the other day. Terry Hall brought it up, or yeah, it was on Saturday, that anti-gravity had been worked on way back in the 50s, and supposedly they had got it under control, and then it just disappeared from the media. Let's see. Magneticus, electrostatic, anti-gravity, Maggie M10. Surely, if enough people come forward, they collectively be safe from the people who will silence them. Maybe I'm naive. No, and that was one of the things I was saying was, blow the whistle, step forward on behalf of humanity, because even if you're breaking an NDA, which obviously if you don't have to break one, don't do it, but if it's going to be to help this thing move, the people will stand behind you. You know what I mean? The people stand behind you. We'll go out there and march and make sure that they don't lock you away. So I think that they're feeling the need to do something more for humanity. And hopefully they're thinking about the grandkids. And that's one of the things I said as well. If you're not going to do it for humanity, do it for your future descendants. You know what I mean? And make sure they're going to be okay. Make sure that this is going to be a world, a good world for them to inhabit. And so I don't know. I don't, so who was the guy? Klippenstein. Klippenstein can't write enough articles to shoot down 30 whistleblowers, 30 to 50. I'd like to see him try. And let's see here. Let's see. Okay, Derek Galloway. Neil deGrasse Tyson had a meltdown on the podcast trying to argue why men should be able to play in women's. I didn't see that. David Devine broadcasted. Thanks for coming through. Good evening to you, sir. And let's see. Maggie M10. Oh, yeah. Congrats on your after hours gig. Yeah. I mean, thank you very much. We're going to be doing it big on both sides. We're just going to. There's a lot of things that we're working on over there that can't wait to show. And it's going to be some great things going on over at Space Style Radio. We're going to elevate that game for after hours. This past weekend, we did phenomenal, and a lot of people were receptive to the changes that we're doing. So, and this is just, we pretty much jumped into it, and didn't really have a lot of preparation. So, right. And that's why, I'm doing this show, but the next show I won't do for about a week and a half. And that's because there are things that we need to get ready over there. And once I can be stable and have everything going, comfortably and rolling the way that we need to do it, then I can obviously do both. And it's not a big deal. So, let's see. Magneticus. Pump up. Okay. All right. That's too much for TV, Magneticus. All right. So let me go ahead and get into, let's see. I think that was the last news story, actually. Yeah, so we have Ask the Chat. We already know what time it is with that.
Ask the Chat.
Ask the Chat. Are we still on track for confirmation? What do you say? Because I say, heck yeah. I was almost gonna cuss it. HE double hockey sticks isn't really a cuss word, but I was gonna say that, right? I feel really good about that news. You know what I mean? I'm really feeling reinvigorated as far as, our momentum. You know what I mean? So just so glad to see that. But yeah, so what we'll do, we can go ahead and jump out of the news. First, Maggie M10 says, I don't know. I think so. Okay. Let's see. Derek Galloway. Wait. Dave might still be here, but you said, Dave, are you still here? You got to let me do your intro music. You mean for the main show during the week? Because the after hours intro now, we're cracking now. We got some, man, I'm telling you. The content's coming right behind it too. We got a good show planned for Saturday, so make sure you're there. Love the new intro, but the music, okay. Orez toothbrush. Thanks for coming through. And okay. Let's see. All right. All right, so we're looking good there. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump out of the news and then just start kind of pondering the whole moon thing. So let's go ahead and get out of the news. All right, so we're going to get into moon landing, going back or first time. You know, we have Artemis 2 is going to supposedly take our astronauts to the moon in 2024. And I'm asking the question, are we actually going back or are we actually going for the first time? And there's a good reason to ask that question. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can talk on both sides of that conversation. And I like to entertain both because I'm middle of the road. And if they presented me with some evidence that said, nope, we didn't go, and it was undisputable, guess what? I'm over here with the people who believe we didn't go. If the evidence shows that. If they say, look, we did go, guy, check this out, look at all the stuff, then guess what? I'm over here with the people who said we went. So it's always good to play middle of the road and kind of just be open-minded and listen to the information and the evidence. And, you know, here's the thing that I can't understand, right? You have some people who just, for whatever reason, stand on one side or the other of that argument. So and I would ask that person, unless they can give me some real good facts, and this is kind of where that conversation happens. So I ask them, how do you know? How do you know we went? Did you go? Like, you just, because you believe that NASA would never lie to you or tell you a story, or like, what is the reason that you believe that we went to the moon? What facts do you have? What test did you run that shows? What telescope did you use for you to know that we went to the moon? And that argument goes to the other side as well. Didn't go to the moon. Well, how do you know that? What proof do you have that we didn't go? Right? So that argument can happen all day long, but that's when you sit down and you start pulling out evidence and saying, see, this is why, making the argument. Both sides should be open-minded to information that's being presented. And that's kind of what we're going to do today. We're just going to look at, you know, there's some of the basic stuff that everybody has already gone over and said, and we're going to look at that. Let me go ahead and check the chat here. So, okay, get my notes up here. All right, so let's see. Okay, so no wonder Karen has been suggesting Wild Wild West Artemis. James Western, Stanley Kubrick knows the answer. You know, and he may exactly know the answer, and that may just be the end of it right there. Or could be maybe that was not proven Do we go back to what evidence do we have? Excuse me. Magneticus says NASA showed me a rock a few times. My brother works for NASA, and there's still a lot of things that I don't buy. So let's see. Cowboys 5 Rings. What's up? What's up? Welcome to the show. All right, Maggie M10. I just find the whole we lost technology highly suspect. We're right here, Maggie. We're right here. That's part of my presentation. We're going to get into that. That's going to come back up. So let's see. Mike Jones. Thanks for coming through. Mike Jones says, Rob G, what's your thoughts on the picture of the flag waving in the air on the moon? Yeah, we're going to get to that, Mike Jones. That's part of so I'll stop when we get to that and then readdress that here. Let me actually save that question. And also Maggie M10's question there. Okay, so let's see. All right, Raymond, thanks for coming through. And let's see. James Western, conspiracy theory seems to think Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landings, so I think he knows the truth. Yeah. And obviously, if he did film them, he'd be sworn to secrecy. I believe he passed away, right? He's no longer alive. I'm not sure about that, but I believe that that's the case. Okay. Magnetica says he can explain the waving flag. And see, that's where the conversation happens back and forth. That's where, so one person says, okay, this is my proof that it didn't happen. And this person says, well, no, I can prove it. But that's the fruitful conversation, because if it's good information, if you could prove why the flag was waving, then the opposite side, as long as they're open-minded, should be open to that explanation, and then be able to move forward to the next thing. Okay, well, you proved that. Okay, well, I can go with you on that. Let's see. Oh, Derek, you sure did, and I should have brought those. Maybe I don't know if I can show them. Derek Galloway did send me some photos of what appeared to be men on the moon. I'm glad you brought that back up, Derek Galloway. Let me see here. Let me see if I can actually bring those up. I think I can. I can at least show you on camera. And that's evidence that Derek Galloway has brought forward. So let me see. That would be this here, and Derek. Okay. It says Apollo 17, but this is one of the pictures Derek Galloway sent to the number 856-843-3444 or 856 The Dig. That's where Derek Galloway sent this picture. Once again, you guys can do the same thing. If you have anything that you want to show, you have any experiences, anything like that, please feel free to do that. So this is, I guess, what are we seeing here, Derek Galloway? Is this a moon rock? I would assume this is a moon rock. So this is, these are from what Derek Galloway is saying are, I got some photos that the public isn't privy to, not scrubs. This is one of the ones that he's talking about. And there's others here. I don't know if I can get you to the others, but we have this one here. We'll show this. The glare is crazy, huh? Okay. This is what Derek Galloway sent me, right? Those guys look like they're on the moon, but they could be in Las Vegas in the desert because I've seen terrain looks just like that, but that's where the conversation starts. So who knows where they're at? Who knows? I've been to places in Las Vegas, or not in Las Vegas necessarily, but in Nevada, and you would swear you were on Mars or the moon, or just you wouldn't even know. Okay, Raymond. What about the NASA official saying they lost the plans, how to get back to the moon? See, we're talking about that. Maggie M10 said the same thing. I mean, oh boy. Let me see. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Mike Jones says Raymond JFK was going to do a joint moon mission with Russia and the without the tech. How can they say they went? Yeah, it's heated, right? It can get heated. So here's what we're going to do. Man pushes for the moon. Man pushes for the moon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay it out for you, right? 1969, summertime. This is how NASA would love for you to believe the events went. And it could be true, and we're just going to see. So, the summer of 1969, the world held its breath as humanity embarked on an unprecedented journey. The Apollo 11 mission was poised to make history. On board the spacecraft were three brave astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. As the Saturn V rocket thundered towards the heavens, millions watched, hearts pounding, hoping for the success of this audacious venture. The crew hurtled through space, leaving behind the blue jewel of Earth, venturing further than any humans had before. Meanwhile, back on Earth, families, friends, and strangers united in a collective sense of wonder and pride. They listened intently to every transmission, their eyes fixed on television screens, waiting for that monumental moment. Finally, days after days of travel, the lunar module, affectionately named Eagle, separated from the command module, leaving Michael Collins to circle the moon alone. Inside the Eagle, Armstrong and Aldrin guided their spacecraft towards the lunar surface. As the Eagle descended, the tension in the control room was palpable. Every second counted, every maneuver scrutinized. Armstrong's voice crackled through the radio and composed, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." A wave of euphoria swept through Mission Control. The world let out a collective cheer. They had made it. The first humans had touched down on the moon. After hours of meticulous preparations, Neil Armstrong descended the ladder, his heart pounding in rhythm with the history he was about to make. With deliberate steps, he touched the lunar soil and declared, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Buzz Aldrin soon joined him on the surface, and together they planted the American flag, a symbol of human achievement and unity transcending borders and politics. They spent hours conducting experiments, collecting samples, and capturing the stark beauty of the moon on film. The Earth hung in the sky, a fragile blue marble against the vastness of space. As the mission concluded and the lunar module blasted off, the world watched with bated breath. The rendezvous with Michael Collins was a testament to human ingenuity, precision, and collaboration. The return journey was met with relief and jubilation. The three astronauts splashed down into the Pacific Ocean, and a new era dawned for humanity. The Apollo 11 mission had not only fulfilled a dream, but it had shown what united determination and boundless imagination could achieve. The legacy of Apollo 11 lives on, a beacon of hope and a testament to human potential. Awesome, right? Sounds awesome. That is a picture-perfect story, a picture perfect tale to tell all of humanity for years and years to come. Just the epic, all American story. Just awesome, right? Surface of the moon, planting a flag. We're here first. We did it, right? So here's what we're going to do. Let me go ahead and say hey to Jody Terry. Hey, Jody Terry, thank you for coming through. And Raymond, I heard there were dark alien bases on the dark side of the moon. Also heard we nuked the bases. It wouldn't surprise me if we have bases there, always lied to by our government. Yeah. And James Western, on the flip side, you never seen Russian moon pics. Great point. Everyone all over Earth has seen USA's pics. No one's seen a Russian moon pic. Excellent point, James Western. Excellent freaking point. Jody Terry, I remember watching the moon landing on TV. And that's exactly, so we just went over how it played out in the summer of 69. It all happened perfectly, landed on the moon. This is one of the images we got. It was a beautiful day. And actually, but not everybody felt that this is what happened. So there is an alternate story. So at least this is the way that NASA would like for you to remember it. A lot of people disagree with that, with how it actually went. So here's how the story goes from their eyes. From the people that said, wait a minute. So same thing, summer of 69. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in the summer of 69, in the hushed corridors of a covert film studio, was transformed into a meticulous recreation of the lunar surface. Every crater, the rock, and speck of moon dust was meticulously crafted. Advanced technology was employed to simulate the harsh lighting conditions and the desolate expanse of space. The astronauts, handpicked for their acting prowess, were coached to perfection. Neil Armstrong, the stoic commander, embodied the role effortlessly. His calm demeanor and deliberate movements were rehearsed to convey the gravity of the moment. Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the, quote, moon, mirrored Armstrong's performance flawlessly. The absence of stars in the photographs was an intentional choice, a calculated move to eliminate any inconsistencies that might arise from the simulation of the lunar landscape. The film crew knew that including stars could inadvertently reveal the earthly origin of their production. Special effects wizards worked tirelessly to create the illusion of low gravity. Harnesses and suspension systems allowed the astronauts to float effortlessly, their movements choreographed with precision. The flag planted on the moon was designed to ripple and sway, mimicking the behavior of fabric in a vacuum. As Neil Armstrong's voice echoed through the radio declaring, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." The team held their breath. The world listened, captivated by the broadcast. It was a performance for the ages, a testament to the artistry and ingenuity of those involved. The iconic words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," were scripted to perfection. They echoed through the studio, recorded for posterity. The world watched in awe, unaware that they were witnessing a masterful production. In the years that followed, the truth remained hidden, known only to those who had played their roles in this audacious feat. The film reels were carefully archived, the studio dismantled, leaving behind no trace of the lunar illusion. As the decades passed, the story became enshrined in history, a testament to human achievement. The Apollo 11 mission, hailed as a triumph of science and exploration, was in reality a testament to the power and imagination and artistry. And so the secret of the lunar hoax remained hidden, tantalizing whisper in the annals of history, known only to a select few who had witnessed the birth of mankind's most ambitious illusion. So that could very easily be the story. So we know the story that everybody goes with, the majority goes with, which is the original story that I read, Summer 69, a beautiful day. It all happened perfectly. They landed on the moon, they stepped out, they planted the flag. But then we have the ulterior story that says it was the summer of 69. They were in a film studio. They recreated the lunar surface. And so, being middle of the road, either one of those could be true. So now I say, show me the evidence, right? Either way, whichever side you stand on in that conversation, show me the evidence. Depending on you, and that's to you guys. Whatever side you're on in that argument. If you say, hey, no, it happened, they did land. Okay, tell me why. If you say, oh no, it didn't happen, tell me why. We have both sides of that conversation. So a lot of the popular ideas of why this was faked would be obviously what we're looking at here. So the film studio expertise suggesting that a level of detail in footage and photos could have only been achieved in a high-end film studio, implying a staged production. Moon landing being filmed on a set by Stanley Kubrick, who had just done a space movie and had special effects that were way ahead of the time at the time. And let me take a look here. Okay, let's see. What about the astronaut suits? Looked like it was filling up with water. Anyone see that? Magneticus wants to pay for the vacuum chamber time. Reds, which, by the way, thanks for coming through, Reds. I don't know if I told you. The flag wouldn't wave unless something from the thrust was hitting it. Maggie M10, yeah, I remember the water leak in the suit. Reds, and if that was the case, moon dust would cloud the shot. And the mechanical arm was inducing the waves, says Magneticus. Okay. All right. Well, so flag movement, which is the next thing, is what we're talking about here. So critics arguing that the American flag planted on the moon seemed to ripple as if there were wind, which would be impossible in the vacuum of space. The lack of stars, we always hear that argument, but it's been, to me, explained pretty well. That some claiming that the absence of visible stars in the moon landing photos is suspicious, suggesting they were taken on soundstage with artificial lighting. You could say that, but we all know if you live in a city that's lit, well lit, you can't see any stars up there. You have to go out of the city to really see the stars. So, you can go, I lean more towards that isn't a good argument for it. So, in the shadows, like and you'll find out a lot of the things that they say, and them kind of going over the main ones that everybody says is the reason why it was a hoax. It isn't necessarily, isn't really like the burning proof that is needed to say, yeah, this is a hoax. So the shadow and lighting, I think this has been explained away pretty good as well. So some people point out that they see inconsistencies in the shadow cast by objects in the moon landing photos, suggesting multiple light sources. But we've seen on plenty of occasions that we had people that proved that could be possible. So kind of let that one go. And this is the other one that they always use, which is skeptics arguing that there should be noticeable blast crater beneath the lunar module where the engines fired during descent, but it appears relatively clean in the photos. Now, I will say I did see some of the closer photos that did show some disturbance in the soil. So Won't stand with that one. And here's one of the big ones. The Van Allen belt, right? So this has been one of the biggest ones where people say, yeah, no, couldn't do that. They couldn't go through that. They would not survive that. They couldn't make it through that. And, you know, I had kind of been leaning towards that as well. Like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. If there's lethal doses of radiation and it was completely surrounding the planet, like how in the world could they do that, survive that in pretty much a tin can, right? So this is how this was explained. So just to start off, some claiming the Van Allen radiation belt surrounding the Earth would have been lethal to astronauts, and then NASA failed to adequately shield them. So apparently, what Professor Van Allen. So there was a person who looked into this and sent an email to Professor Van Allen, and this was the reply that he received. It says, "Dear Mr. Lambert, in reply to your email, I send you the following copy of a response that I wrote to another inquiry about 2 months ago. The radiation belts of Earth do indeed pose important constraints on the safety of human spaceflight. The very energetic tens of hundreds of MeV protons in the inner radiation belt are the most dangerous and the most difficult to shield against, specifically prolonged flights, i.e., ones of many months' durations of humans or other animals in orbit above the Earth must be conducted at altitudes less than about 250 miles in order to avoid significant radiation exposure. A person in the cabin of a space shuttle in a circular equatorial orbit in the most intense region of the inner radiation belt at an altitude of about 1,000 miles would be subjected to a fatal dosage of radiation in about 1 week. However, the outbound and inbound trajectories of the Apollo spacecraft cut through the outer portions of the inner belt, and because of their high speed, spent only about 15 minutes in traversing the region and less than 2 hours in traversing the much less penetrating radiation in the outer radiation belt. The resulting radiation exposure from the round trip was less than 1% of a fatal dosage, a very minor risk among the far greater other risks of such flights. I made such estimates in the early 1960s and so informed NASA engineers who were planning the Apollo flights. These estimates are still reliable. The recent Fox TV show which I saw is an ingenious and entertaining assemblage of nonsense. The claim that radiation exposure during the Apollo missions would have been fatal to the astronauts is only one example of such nonsense. Signed, James A. Van Allen." So what do you do with that? It's the Van Allen belt, and Van Allen replied in the email saying this is how they could have done it. So that, like I said, middle of the road, presented with evidence, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. Pretty strong evidence that says that they could have gone through that radiation belt on the way to the moon and not really been affected. So this would help out the argument of, yes, moon landing happened, right? It would. I mean, you can't deny that. So some other things that people use would be the lunar module descent. Some argue that the video footage of the lunar module's descent is too smooth and stable, suggesting it was filmed in a controlled environment. But how can you prove that today, one way or the other? It's just a claim, right? So going into the next one, it'd be footprints and soil composition. Skeptics argue how astronauts left such defined footprints in the lunar soil without moisture, and argue that the soil looks similar to earthly materials. And I guess you can be the judge of that yourself. I mean, have I been places here on Earth where, your footprint will look like that if you stepped in something? I mean, I gotta say, yeah. I mean, and there may be reasons, obviously, that this could be the case, that it would happen on the moon, and I'm open to someone telling me what that is. Let me go ahead and check the chat here. Let's see. Okay. All right. It was general conversation, so that's okay. All right. So, like I said, I don't have enough information or evidence to refute this. However, it would make sense that, hey, that does look like, it could be wet dirt. How would it be wet if it's on the moon? So I'd be waiting for a reply to that, a rebuttal, So there's, as you see, there's wins for the people that say, yeah, it happened. There's wins for the people saying, no, it didn't. I mean, some of the things that you have to just explain. So another one that's always used, and well, this one is pretty controversial, but it's the political motivations. So some theorists often bring up the intense political pressure during the space race as a possible motivation for NASA to fake the moon landing to beat the Soviet Union. So we were in a space race with Russia. They were first at many things in the beginning of the space race. Russia launched Sputnik in 1957. So what you see here, we were losing, actually, the space race. We were losing in all aspects. We were not first to do any of those things. Now, following that, 1961, obviously, if you recall, John F. Kennedy made the famous moon speech promising that we would get to the moon. So he says, if I can read what he says here, he says, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, right? He said we would get there by the end of the decade. He said this in 1961. Could he have the foresight and, ability to know that we would be able to achieve that, something that no one has ever done ever in history, and be able to say that it would happen by the end of that decade? That's pretty strong. When you look at NASA right now, it takes them years to put together missions and do anything. They're telling you about missions that are going to happen 10 years from now. So, was Kennedy ever be able to call that? And this would have been the first time? Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. But just so happens that we definitely got to the moon 1969 at the buzzer, summertime, 1969. 6 more months, and this Kennedy quote would not have even had as much weight to it. So is it something, with political motivations, that argument makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, though, when you think about it. We're losing at everything. We're losing. They're first to launch, put something in orbit. They're first put a man in orbit. They're doing all those things. And we were losing, man. So what do? You go for a big win. You go for the big win. And that might be, what we're looking at. So, but like I said, just take the evidence. And at the end of the day, you process it how you process it. For you, it may not hold anything. For you, it may be like, wow, that does make kind of sense. I mean, it's, you don't have to lean that way, but is it logical? And that's a lot of the stuff I find out, that it doesn't take a lot of brilliance to figure some of this stuff out. A lot of this stuff is common sense, man. At the end of the day, And I know everybody has that. So that's your best tool. Use your common sense when it comes to this. So getting into so that makes a lot of sense. So, but there's cases where they're proving that the moon landing is real. Some people try to use the reflectors that they left on the moon, saying, "Hey, no, they shoot lasers at these things all the time. They shoot back, and that's how we know." How far the moon is at any given moment, and they put those there, so there you go, that's the proof. However, it had been uncovered that I can't remember the college, but there was a university in 1963 who had already been shooting lasers at the moon, and because of the reflective surface of the moon, they were getting readings back already. So they had been shooting lasers at the moon prior to the moon landing. That's just the truth. So that doesn't mean that they didn't go to the moon and then also put those there. That could still be the case. But there is a fact that they were already shooting lasers at the moon prior to a man landing there. So I thought that was interesting. So looking at both sides of that. So getting into this is one where people say, "Yeah, okay, moon rock. How could you?" And Derek, this goes to the photo that you showed me. Astronauts on the moon. They have moon rock. Like, okay, you cannot dispute moon rock. How did they get the moon rock? Right? How could you dispute that? How could you dispute that? Right? You would think. But as you see on this headline here, moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin is fake. So the way that this went, so first of all, apparently while they were on the moon, they collected over 380 kilograms of moon rocks as soil that were brought back to Earth. But the problem with this is that the country that accused the United States of giving them the fake moon rock is the Netherlands. So in 2009, the Dutch National Museum of Natural History, also known as Naturalis, discovered a moon rock that they had on display was actually a piece of petrified wood. It had been presented to former Dutch Prime Minister Willem Drees by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin in 1969 as a gift on behalf of NASA. This incident led to the realization that the rock was not an authentic moon sample. Could have been a mistake. They could have grabbed the wrong rock, right? They could have grabbed the wrong rock. I guess that's possible. Is it? Does it make sense? If we use our common sense, is it possible that they gave them petrified wood instead of a moon rock? I don't know. You guys answer that. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. So you let me know. You let me know. Magneticus, yeah. 856-843-3444, or that's 856 the dig. Let's see. So yeah, Jody Terry, you're making a great point. Remember, the astronauts looked very scared or shook up during the interview, scared or maybe worried because they were told to lie. I don't know which. No, we're going to be looking at that too. Don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. Maggie M10 says, whoa, wow, that's nuts. No, not the wrong rock. Holy wow, exactly. Busted, and got called out. They got called out. This just happened in 2009 when they figured out that that the rock was fake. The way this happened was when they got back from the moon landing, they went like on a tour around the world, and these were gifts that they were giving to other nations, saying, hey, we want to share this moment and achievement with you. And it was found out that the rock was petrified wood. Maybe Mike Jones says, maybe Buzz did a switch or none of them are real. Right. That's what I mean. So what do? What do we do? It's just the evidence. The evidence, if you're open minded, that's some pretty damning evidence, man. There should hopefully, I would personally, if I'm like, whoa, okay, that's deep, then I would want some evidence showing how that mix up could have happened. That's what I would want to know. And I'm not leaning either way right now. I'm not saying that I'm not fighting for team it didn't happen, or I'm not even fighting for team it did happen. I'm just giving you the facts. And you do with them what you will. James Weston says he remember hearing about NASA giving away fake moon rocks as gifts, but never actually gave the real ones. And that could be a true story, but it could be just hearsay as well. That could be the story to cover up the fact that these rocks are all fake. You know what I mean? So in 1969, no one has seen a moon rock. So you can give them anything. You could give them a loaf of hard bread and said that was from the moon. But hey, yeah. So I thought that was pretty big, but yeah. So there's other arguments. So the Soviet Union, obviously, they're in the space race. So the Soviet Union is obviously looking at us like, whoa, we've been beating them all this time. Now, boom, here they go. They're on the moon. Whoa. So they're saying that if this had been fake, the Soviet Union would have called that out immediately. They had just called that out and said, nope, it's not true. You guys didn't do it. And, that's a good argument. That's a good argument. But then it can't be the only evidence that you have is that the Soviet Union would have called it out. Maybe not. You have to compile that with other evidence. But I'm presenting you with it all. Now you just take it and then be like, whoa, okay, it weighs on me. A lot of evidence says they did go. A lot of it says they didn't. So we'll get there. We're getting there. And then we have, this is some pretty damning proof here if you look at the surface of it. So the reconnaissance orbiter images. So apparently NASA has a reconnaissance orbiter that orbits the moon and has taken pictures of all of the landing sites showing, as you can see in this photo, the landers, and then in Apollo 15 in that case, in 16 and 17, the rovers. So on the face, this would be like, wow, case closed. Okay, there's the tracks. I see tracks. I see some things. I can't see what they are. I can't see the definition of what these things are. But you're saying they're landers? Okay, I see some tracks. Man, that's pretty heavy evidence there. Pretty heavy evidence. Right? You would think case closed. This should be enough right here. But I'll tell you about a time when Carol Rosin, if you're familiar with that name, came in 2001 to the Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project 1.0 and gave testimony that she said she'd be willing to swear the oath in front of Congress, stating that she worked for a contractor that worked with NASA, and she had access to the photo room, which I guess was across the hall. She goes over there and she sees a guy that's essentially, his job is to airbrush the photos that NASA takes and airbrush things out of them, essentially, like imperfections, anomalous things. And she asked the guy what he was doing, and he pretty much told her, yeah, I'm scratching out some things, and so many words, let her know that he was scratching out anomalous things. So if they're doing that, Could they put things into the image? Photoshop? I don't know. I can do a pretty good job at Photoshop, and I'm not, the professional. So I know that you could add things to pictures. We can't. There is no way for us to verify that these came directly from, the source. And then once again, it's not leaning one way or the other. It's just stating a fact. Like, I would have to have more evidence for this. It would seem on the surface that this should be just a slam dunk. Like, hey, but with Photoshop being a thing, in the same way that we look at UFO sightings and we have people that Photoshop those photos. I mean, we got to do the same thing here. How can we vet it? What's the chain of command? I mean, chain of custody, right? What's the chain of custody? So, yeah, Mike Jones, chain of custody on the evidence has got shade, right? Chain of custody. So, how do we know what hands this has passed through? So, yeah, Carol Rosin, Rosin, I believe is her last name, and it's just Carol, Carol. I did, if you go back and watch my Disclosure Project 1.0 video, I covered everyone who spoke at that event. And I want to say I also played video of Carol Rosin's testimony. So you can actually hear her tell this story that I'm telling you right now. And then Maggie M10, at the time, editing photos would have seemed far-fetched. Now, so many people are doing it. Filters, apps, and phones. Exactly. Smartphone apps. Magneticus, if the UFO landed in my backyard, I wouldn't believe it unless a rock bounces off of it. Jody Terry, they can do far more with technology today than any of us know. So they can put in or take out anything they want. Right. Magneticus, yeah, that's how you spell it. Carol Rosin. But like I say, you can look it up. You'll probably find it online, but just go back and watch the Disclosure Project video I did. I did two. I did Disclosure Project and Disclosure Project 2.0. Watch the Disclosure Project 1.0. That's the one that she testifies in. Okay. So let me go ahead and get that off here. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this should be slam dunk, but what we know people can do to yeah, if we could all look through a telescope and see the rovers or third party, maybe, yeah, you would think so. And the thing is, they're rushing to the moon, so what could if they hurry up and get there? There's a new conspiracy because it's like, oh, did you plant any of these things? Did you, you know what I mean? So hopefully, this would be something that can be figured out before Artemis 2 even gets to the moon. Yeah, if you watched the first Disclosure Project, Magneticus, you definitely saw her. Robert Salas, all those guys testified there. It was really good. So, yeah. So going further, we're almost to the end of this. We have. Oh, okay. This doesn't weigh anything. This is just me talking some mess here. But I wanted to point this out. It was funny. And it doesn't really mean anything. Or could it mean something? I'm not claiming that this means anything at all. But you have Artemis 2 and then Apollo 11. Artemis 2 using Roman numerals. Artemis and Apollo, according to Greek mythology, Apollo is one of 12 Olympian gods in Greek mythology, often associated with sunlight, music, healing, and prophecy. Then you have Artemis, which is Apollo's twin sister in Greek mythology. She is associated with the moon, hunting, wilderness, and childbirth. So is this NASA saying, okay, with it being the twin situation, that, okay, is this NASA admitting, hey, yeah, we didn't go the first time, but we're going this time? Artemis 2. This is off NASA's website, so they're not using the number 2. They're using Roman numeral 2, which both of these would be A11. And this is obviously doesn't have, a lot to it. This is just me being funny on this, and saying, and Magneticus is a number guy, so we know about 1111. But yeah, I mean, you take that, you do with that what you will. That's just, I thought it was pretty ironic and strange. And yeah, Mike Jones video did a few back on Kennedy and World War II was really good. They all good, but that one was deep. Yeah, here's the thing, Mike Jones. A lot of people don't like deep. I think you're talking about, was that the Top Secret Government? I think that's the one. A lot of people, that isn't what they sign up for. You know, they want to see some of the fantastical stuff and some more of the fun stuff. When it gets deep, not a lot of people want to get into that conversation. But I never apologize for that. I never apologize for it. If it doesn't do well, view-wise, oh well. The conversation still has to be had. That's why you go back and look at intergalactic capitalism. That's another one. Didn't do really that well. You go into the has MUFON dropped the ball? Is MUFON a bad organization? That one didn't do that well. These are all deep conversations, but I don't apologize for any of that because they have to be had and they're there for eternity. So whenever you get around to wanting to have that conversation, it's there for you. It's in the catalog. Maggie M10 likes deep. That's what's up, because I do too. Jody Terry likes deep. And Mike Joe says, yes, man, don't apologize for seeking the truth. Not at all. MUFON was a great vid. Yeah, just do them and move on. You know, it's my important thing to me is for the key things to be part of the catalog. So when you go back and look in the Social Dig catalog, you're gonna find a little bit of everything that touches all the important conversations, and a lot of channels don't do that. So that's what we do here, though. So let me see. Yeah, Maggie M10. I know it was deep. I know I felt it when we were doing the episode. You had to think about it, and it's still something to think of. It's heavy. It's a heavy conversation, and the one we're doing next week on the Scientology, that's why it's taking so long, because that one's going to be another heavy one. So I anticipate it probably won't do the best, but it's still a conversation that has to be had. Mr. Terry Hall, thanks for coming through. We are getting deep here tonight. Once upon a midnight dreary high all. Terry's in the building. While I pondered weak and weary. Okay. So, yeah. So that was something fun I pointed out. Just, it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. But it was ironic that, this is what are they admitting that they didn't go. Because as someone pointed out earlier, and we're going to go into my thoughts about all this. So my thoughts, this is just some things that I threw out there, and maybe somebody can answer these. So, as far as going to the moon, if you say you went to the moon, they were using basic electronics aboard the lunar module that were less powerful and less sophisticated than a calculator watch. However, they were able to navigate to the moon, right, and back. And it could be that was enough technology to do it. That could be the answer to that. So the lunar lander test on Earth failed. Neil Armstrong was in it and almost died if he didn't eject himself, crash landed. So they couldn't perfect the lunar lander operation on Earth, but they got to the moon and it was great, successfully first time. Could be. So they went all the way to the moon and took perfect, beautiful pictures in 1969. When in 2023, when visiting a location here on Earth for the first time, we never seem to get the perfect shots in the moment. If you ever went somewhere on a vacation, first time you see it, like, oh, this is beautiful. Take a picture, get some pictures, but you never get the perfect shot. Somehow they went to the moon, landed, got out, clunky suits, and got the perfect shot, picture perfect shots, many of them. Could be first time luck. They just happened to do it, and that's how it turned out. It could be simple as that. However, I think it'd be something to, look at a little more closely. How can they do that, and we can't even really imitate that here on Earth? Okay, that's for you to decide. So here's another one of my thoughts, right? So NASA was confident enough in the moon landing that they chose to live broadcast across the globe as if no possibility of a disaster happening on live TV, even though this would be the first time a human would actually put foot on the moon. So potential that these astronauts could die, but you live stream it to the world. Yeah, doesn't make sense. I mean, to be fair, Nixon did have, apparently, for what they've uncovered. Now, it's also another chain of custody issue with that. But there was a letter that had been uncovered that pretty much was a speech in case that did happen. If it went all wrong, there was a presidential speech that Nixon was supposed to read, and it talked about the families and how we lost them and their heroes. So that was something that people said was there, but it's chain of custody on that. I would need to know when that was written. Was it written after the fact, or was it really actually authentic letter that was on hand in case something happened? So that makes a difference. So another one of the thoughts: how could we manage a nearly flawless live broadcast from the surface of the moon back in 1969? But here on YouTube, we can barely get through a live stream without something going wrong. Back in 1969, how could we transmit a flawless, movie perfect, if you want to be real, movie perfect transmission in 1969 in a time where Kennedy said we were going to be there, and then we got there, and then we chose to show it to the world, and we executed it flawlessly, and we filmed everything perfectly, and we transmitted this transmission back to Earth, picture perfect, flawlessly for everyone to see. Could it happen? I guess. However, you can't even get through a live stream without, you cross your fingers to get through a live stream. Take that with however you may look at it and go with it. Maybe that says, oh, wow, okay. Or maybe it doesn't do anything for you. Either way. And then this was one of the questions I'll bring back up here, because it was Maggie's question. I just dropped it. I'm sorry. But Raymond asked it too. What about the NASA officials saying they lost plans on how to go back to the moon, right? That was my next thought. Is why does NASA have to refigure out how to go back to the moon prior to Artemis 2's launch, essentially claiming that the knowledge that led to the first moon landing was lost? Like, how does that even make sense? How do you lose technology and information? So maybe that's what happened to NASA. They lost this UFO data too that they used to have, that was compiled, that we know they had. Yeah. So with that being said, those are my thoughts. And you can take that with however you want to do it. But this was the other thing that we all talked about, right? So let me bring it up for everybody to see. The Apollo 11 press conference. And the question here, do these look like the faces of men who just accomplished a monumental feat? Look at these guys. They're at the press conference. They're going to be hailed as heroes, world heroes. Look at the body language. Astronauts returning home didn't seem as happy as one should be after being the first humans to step foot on another celestial body. Could you agree with that? I mean, just everybody's seen the press conference. Or it could be as simple as this. See, this is how evidence can turn you either way. So yes, that makes good sense looking at that. The meme that we sat here and put. So do you look like faces of men who just accomplished a monumental feat? It's like, wow, no, they don't. They look defeated, like Jody just said, right? So, but then look at this, Jody. Mike Jones says, that's the body language you see, and you raise the bet. Exactly. But guess what? The meme can change just like this. Wait, let me get Terry Hall in there. Look at their faces after you would have been to the moon. What else is going to top that? Not like riding the Harleys, like riding a freaking rocket. That's right. Look how quickly the meme changes, though. Is this the look of men who found something living on the moon? Whoa. Bombshell, right? That could go either way for me. I could go either way with that. It could be these guys went to the moon, yeah, and they saw something that they didn't want to see. That could be the faces of these guys I'm looking at. Or it could just be some guys that know they didn't actually go to the moon, and now we have to sit here in front of these people and act like we did. Man, it's tough, man. It's really tough. It's really, really tough. So, some think this is because they saw something while they were on the moon. Some think we haven't been back because we were warned not to go back by ET presence. This is what a lot of people say when it comes down to the moon. Is the moon already occupied? Is the moon already occupied? So I'm going to read you this. Now, regardless of any of this, NASA has been deceiving us on the UFO front. As we have seen with the latest press conference since the beginning of the space race, based on that fact, this can only mean one of two things. Either we did go to the moon and we encountered something, or it's all a lie and we never went at all. Where do you fall in that? That's the both sides of the conversation. Yeah, we did go. Or no, we never went. They just been lying. That still ends up being the end result. But it's the potential, the look on their faces would say that it's going to either be they encounter something or they're lying and they didn't go. That's just what I see with those facial expressions. Doesn't make it true, but hey, Chris, Steve, thanks for coming through. Yeah, so that's where we're at with that. So is the moon already occupied? Who knows? We'll leave it on a cliffhanger and ask the chat.
Ask the chat.
Do you think we really stepped on the surface of the moon? What is your opinion on that? Either way it goes. It could be yes, could be no. David Divine broadcasted. Thanks for coming through. They look like they're in detention. It does. It really, really does. And it could be for whatever reason. Christine says she thinks we really did. Hey, we got a one for really did. Now, I would implore you, Christine, and it does, isn't this. We already said this video is not meant to sway anyone either way. We're just presenting facts and evidence. So, if Christine, if you're just coming in, I'll go back and watch some of this good stuff. A lot of good facts presented, and then maybe you still feel the same way at the end. Maybe. Mike Jones is 50-50. Maggie M10 is highly questionable. Highly questionable. Jody Terry says, flip a coin. Maggie agrees with that. Okay. So, with that being said, I think we made the case. Either way, we didn't make a case either way. We just presented the facts, and it's for everyone else to go ahead and figure out how they feel about that. So, with that being said, let me see what else we got lined up. Okay, I can go ahead and get us out of there. Is where we're going now is we're going to go into our Once Upon a Time in Ufology. And obviously it's going to be moon related. So it's the Gemini 4 UFO. So during Gemini 4, astronaut James McDivitt spotted a white cylinder with a protruding arm traveling in his orbit. McDivitt has said it was possible for him to assign scale to the object against a black background of space, saying that it could have been small enough to hold in his hands or the size of the Empire State Building. Pretty deep. It was anomalous, and he couldn't get the scale, as we've seen, like on some of the STS shuttle videos, the one where they show the tether that's 13 miles long, and it just looks like a small little thing, and you can't get the scale of distance. So he felt it could have been small enough to hold in his hand, or it could have been as big as the Empire State Building. However, it was a metallic object, egg-shaped. They had a mechanical arm coming out of it. So you tell me what that is. I don't know. The reason why we do Once Upon a Time Ufology is to go back over historic cases, because not everybody knows or about the history of this stuff. And then we have a lot of people coming in, which is good, with the momentum building. A lot of people who had never even fathomed any of this stuff to be true. So they come in, they get a little dose of history, which is exactly why we do this on Once Upon a Time Ufology. And let me go ahead and see any. Okay. And Terry says they have blueprints for a moon base in 63, and that's possible. That is very possible, and that could be one of the reasons why they look like that in that photo. Magneticus Big Nose looking over a brick wall tag Kilroy was here. Okay. So that's Once Upon a Time Ufology. And then we're going to get into our science fiction and science fact movie, which we do all the time. It's been a minute, but here we go. So the movie that we're going to be looking at is none other than, of course, what is it? What's the topic? Moonfall. So, if you haven't seen Moonfall is a film directed by Roland Emmerich. Set in the near future, the story begins with an incredible and inexplicable event. The moon is hurtling towards Earth. As the world grapples with the impending catastrophe, a group of unlikely heroes emerges. Laura Forrester, portrayed by Halle Berry, is an astronaut with a complicated past, determined to lead a mission to the moon in an attempt to save humanity. Accompanied by fellow astronaut Brian Harper and conspiracy theorist Casey Houseman, they embark on a perilous journey to discover the truth behind the moon's mysterious trajectory. Meanwhile, a separated couple, Jo Fowler, a brilliant scientist, and her ex-husband Brian, find themselves drawn back together in a desperate race against time. With the help of a reclusive and enigmatic retired astronaut, Walter Lore, Donald Sutherland, they race against the clock to unravel the cosmic enigma that threatens all of humanity. As secrets are unearthed and tensions rise, Moonfall weaves a tale of interstellar intrigue, personal redemption, and the survival of the human race. The film combines stunning visual effects with the compelling narrative, delivering a cinematic experience that explores themes of love, sacrifice, and the indomitable spirit of humanity in the face of a cosmic cataclysm. Moonfall is a high-stakes adventure that pushes the boundaries of space exploration, untimely culminating in an explosive climax that will leave audiences on the edge of their seats. And so that's what we do. Science fiction to science fact is understanding that, yeah, man, these things are happening out here. These things are real. And going back on a movie, looking at it through this new lens that you have now, and then saying, hey, maybe this is something that could happen, right? Because some people think the moon is fake and all sorts of things, and it's hollow, and you know, and it's a good reason for you to watch this movie through that new lens and see how you feel about the presentation of it. So that is our science fiction to science fact movie. Let me go ahead and take a look in the chat. Okay. Maggie forgot to watch the last movie. And I think the last one we did Top Secret Government. So it was Enemy of the State by Jamie Foxx, with Jamie Foxx and not Jamie Foxx, Will Smith and Gene Hackman. Okay. So Terry Hall, the story of Kilroy, any new ground allies took in the World War II. There was always a Kilroy was leading the way. It showed that Kilroy was a kick-ass, take names leader, moral. All right, and let's see. That might be the next. Have to do a part 2 on that. Mac Jones, has anyone seen real facts to support the second moon allegation? I heard it's a very large chunk of rock. I haven't heard of it, but I would definitely look into it. And I heard there's rings around Uranus. Okay. That can easily be turned into a joke, Magneticus. So I don't know if you were joking there. Is there rings around Uranus? But I don't know. I have to look into that. Jody Terry, Enemy of the State, is a great movie. It definitely is. Yep. And so obviously moon themed show. So the science fiction science fact movie couldn't be anything other than Moonfall. So what we'll do here is go ahead and get us out of science fiction to science fact movie edition. And you already know what time it is, guys. Yes. Okay. Like always, I know it's been a while, but hey, we do this for the positive progressing humanity always and forever. If it doesn't move the needle, then it's not worth talking about. Just like we talked about earlier. Sometimes you got to talk about the tough stuff. Sometimes it's a conversation that people aren't ready for in that moment. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. But just know that conversation will be there for you to come back to at a later time. Because the conversation still has to be had. Maggie M10. Watch Bowden tonight. Thanks, Mr. Rhyme. No problem. And let's see. Yes, Uranus has rings. That's what I said. It could have been a joke, right? Okay. Yes. I don't think he meant to make the joke, though. That's crazy, right? Yeah, no problem at all. Maggie M10. We're going to always do this here. And one thing, I want to talk about this, too. Christine said, nice music. Thank you very much. Always a great conversation, Mike Jones. Always a great conversation when you're here, buddy. Appreciate it. So, yes, humanity pushing the needle forward. That's why we do it. With that being said, you can always call the number 856-843-3444, or that's 856-THE-DIG. Leave a message, talk about an experience, give an idea for a show, just say hi, send moon pictures like Derek, send Excel spreadsheets like Magneticus. It's all good. It's all love here at Social Dig. Now, with that being said, obviously, that we're over here with with my new gig, the Spaced Out Radio. So I'm part of the family. Got After Hours on lock, and we are definitely tweaking and tuning. You'll see this weekend, even though last weekend was epic, way better than I ever expected, coming in and learning the system. You guys supported so much, and I appreciate that. Last time I checked, both videos, video 1 and 2, about 1,700 views each. So that's awesome. That's big. That's awesome. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate the comments and the resonating fact that people are liking what it is that we're doing over there. And it's going to be the same level of stuff that we do here. It's going to be 1-to-1. You know what I mean? And we're going to raise the bar, period. Tune in this weekend. We have a surprise. We have Ian Holt coming, producer of the movie From the Shadows. And he's going to come and talk about the release. But it's going to be crazy because the way that we have things going over there is not even what you're expecting. So I would love you guys to come back, show that love. Let me see what we got. Okay. Maggie M10, I can't make shows at present, but I'll show it when I can for sure. Yeah. Always on rewatch. Well, we're going to be changing the game. If you remember After Hours as in his previous incarnation, it's getting a little Mr. Rob G up in there, so we're going to spice it up. Derek Galloway, just wait till I come on After Hours. Going to be a plethora of epicness. That's right. Where's Julie to count the plethoras? Yeah, it's going down. Let me see what else we got here. Mike Jones, right on. Glad to hear about that for sure. Terry Hall, you can catch Mr. Rob. You can catch me, Rob G, on Spaced Out Radio on the weekend now. Crushing too. New content crushing. Derek Galloway, did you go to the red carpet premiere, Rob G? Of course, in the building. Mr. Keith David shook the man's hand. You know what I mean? It was epic. I'm gonna try to find a way to get you guys to see it. I recorded the full red carpet event. It was like over 100 people on the red carpet. Went to the after party, watched the movie, obviously went to the after party. It was amazing, epic. And I'll talk some more about that tomorrow or on Saturday, because we're going to have the producer there, and I was a guest of the producer. So we'll have that conversation on After Hours, Saturday, 8 p.m. On Spaced Out Radio. All right, check out Mr. Ronnie York after the show for sure. Christine, yay, Terry and Rob G, great job. Appreciate it. Derek Galloway, drinks aplenty. Okay. So, with that being said, totally glad you guys came out for me today. Had to come and get back to the Social Dig, make sure we do that. And then now it's a good time to go to work and get ready to prepare for this weekend show. So I hope to see you guys there. And if there isn't anything else, I'm going to go ahead and get us up out of here. So, once again, thanks for everybody coming through. I would go back through the list, but it never works out for me. So, want to thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for listening, and keep it on your mind. Think about the moon stuff, man. These are fun conversations to have. We don't know, one way or the other. We didn't go. We weren't there. So let's just use our common sense, and do that with everything. Use your common sense, and common sense will usually get you through. So outside of that, take care. Like Mike Jones said, take care, beautiful people. My name is Mr. Rob G. I am the host of The Social Dig and After Hours. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care. Till next time. Later.